So today we're diving into how Zambia is trying to solve a massive national crisis by completely tearing up its digital rulebook. It's a huge, controversial move, and believe it or not, it all kicked off with one very big number. 111 million kwacha. What do you think that is? I mean, it's not the budget for a new highway or anything like that. No, it's a loss. A huge one. That's right. In just 1 year, right before these new laws came into play, Zambians lost over 111 million kwacha to cybercriminals. We're talking phishing schemes, scams, people impersonating officials, the whole shebang. So yeah, that kind of massive financial hit, that's what really forced the government's hand. But to really get why they went so big, we need to rewind a little and see what the old system looked like. For years, Zambia's digital world was basically running on an old engine. It was a framework that was just struggling. It couldn't keep up with how fast tech was changing or how clever online criminals were getting. And things moved fast. Back in 2009, the focus was just on the basics, getting telecoms sorted and protecting consumers under the regulator Zyga. Then fast forward to 2021, and they take their first real swing at a cybercrime law. But it got a ton of criticism, with people saying it was just a tool for repression. So that all led to 2025, when the government basically said, okay, scratch that, wipe the slate clean, and brought in this brand new two-part system. And this table, well, this really shows you how seismic the shift was. Just look at the oversight row. It goes from a government ministry all the way up to the office of the president. And then check out surveillance, the power just explodes. It goes from needing a warrant to allowing warrantless interception in what they call urgent cases. This is a crystal clear move to pull all that digital power directly into the executive branch, kind of sidestepping the usual checks and balances. Okay, so with all that money being lost to cybercrime, the government rolls out its big solution, a super powerful new agency with a whole new legal architecture built to back it up. So the government's thinking was, let's split this up. The old way wasn't working. The Cybersecurity Act, that's the shield. It's all about protecting the really important stuff: banking, energy, healthcare systems. And the Cybercrimes Act, well, that's the sword. It gives law enforcement a bunch of new tools to actually go after the bad guys. It's basically separating defense from offense. And right at the center of all of this is the new Zambia Cybersecurity Agency. And listen, this is not just another regulator. This agency has some serious teeth. It gets to decide what counts as critical infrastructure, it can run security audits, and it leads the national response to any cyber attack. It's basically the new sun in Zambia's digital solar system. Now, on the surface, this all sounds pretty good, right? A modern, tough response to a very serious problem. Stronger defenses, clearer laws, what's not to like? But as the details of these laws started to come out, a massive debate just erupted. And this is where the whole story gets really complicated, because it all boils down to one incredibly important question. How do you make a country's digital world safe without taking away the digital freedom of the people who live in it? And here it is. This is the #1 concern for critics. The old regulator, it answered to a ministry. But this new, powerful cybersecurity agency, it answers directly to the president. And digital rights groups immediately started sounding the alarm, saying that without an independent board or some real oversight from Parliament, this agency could easily be turned into a political weapon. This warning from the U.S. Embassy sent absolute shockwaves through the international community. It just lays bare the incredible surveillance powers in these new laws. The legislation keeps this thing called the Central Monitoring and Coordination Center running, which can intercept communications in real time. In the eyes of critics, this essentially turns telecom companies into spies for the state. Okay, so to really get this next point, we need to quickly talk about a key concept: data localization. It's pretty simple, really. It's just a rule that forces companies to keep your data inside the country, on servers that are physically in Zambia. And yep, that's exactly what the 2025 Act makes mandatory for anything that's considered critical information. Now, the government says, hey, this is about digital sovereignty, it makes it easier for law enforcement, but critics are saying it puts the data of NGOs, international banks, and big tech companies right within the physical reach of state security, which, massively ramps up the potential for surveillance without any checks. And a huge part of the problem is how you interpret these laws. Take the Cybercrimes Act. The stated goal is great: stop online harassment. But then it makes it a crime to use a computer to cause humiliation. What even is that? It's totally subjective, right? An activist who shares a political cartoon could easily be accused of trying to humiliate a politician, and suddenly, they could be facing jail time for what most of us would just call free speech. So look, this tension isn't just a legal theory. The two-sided nature of these laws, their potential to do good and their potential to do harm, it's already playing out. On one hand, you have a really powerful and, frankly, very positive use case. The government is using these new laws to roll out a big child online protection strategy. The goal is ambitious and you can't argue with it. Cut online child abuse by 50% by 2029. They're even putting in severe penalties, like life in prison for online human trafficking. And yet, on the other hand, you have this stark warning from the International Center for Not-for-Profit Law. And here's the kicker. It's the very same broad, vague language that could be used to protect kids that could also be used to go after a journalist or an activist. That's the core paradox of this whole new system. And you really have to look at the timing of all this because it's absolutely critical. There's a general election coming up in 2026, and a lot of people in civil society are deeply worried that these sweeping new powers won't just be used to fight crime, but to keep an eye on political opponents and silence any criticism in the run-up to the vote. So where does all this leave Zambia? Well, the country is really standing at a crossroads, facing two very, very different digital futures. The path forward really only leads to one of two places. The first one is the future the government keeps talking about, a safe, secure digital nation, a shining example for the whole region in how to fight cybercrime. But the second path is the one that critics are afraid of, a surveillance state where privacy is a thing of the past and the internet is no longer a place for open, free debate. And ultimately, that leaves us all with one final, powerful question. Are Zambia's new cyber laws a true model for digital security in the 21st century? Or are they actually a blueprint for digital control? The answer to that is going to define the country's entire relationship with technology for decades.